So I want to talk about when therapy becomes toxic. To me, therapy can be incredibly helpful if it's an access point to insight and allows us to embrace change. It allows us to show up differently in our life. That to me is very powerful. But what I've seen is a phenomena, which is that the opposite happens for some people. They show up in therapy and they have conversations, and what those conversations do is they reinforce the narrative or the experience of that person rather than allowing that to evolve. Because if we come back to like what's suffering and what we're creating our reality for ourselves, and why would we create suffering? Well, suffering is just resistance to what is. So if we're having an experience and we have resistance to it, then we suffer. So how I think of it is we have these wonderful landscapes that we live within that are all our stories, all our narratives, all our ideas, and we live within them. And over the course of our experience, how the design is supposed to work is we are supposed to allow that landscape, that structure, that scaffolding in our minds, that's supposed to evolve with us. So we have this desire and we follow it, and we have this experience, and then we have another desire and we follow that and we have another experience, and all of that should be allowing this beautifully complex landscape to evolve. And where suffering comes from is when we hold on to an idea that we have about how things should be, and then reality doesn't match up with it. It can't. Then we're in this position of resisting what is, which is incredibly painful. So that's where easefulness is. Easefulness is in enjoying and celebrating and delighting in our own experience, our own transitions, being able to show up to things with curiosity because you know that you don't know. That to me is a beautiful way to live. It's an easeful way to live. We can show up knowing that we don't know, but with a powerful intention of how we want to be in the world. And that's like the ideal to me. So where therapy can come in is if we to talk about how we're experiencing things can be liberating. So we can allow our landscape to evolve a little because we've spoken something out loud. Sometimes we might allow ourselves to evolve a little when we discover we only did a thing because it was what our parents did, and then we have this permission to do something different, but through an insight of not needing to repeat something that's been done. So those are the ways for me in which therapy is really, really powerful. But when we use it in a way to justify our stories or justify our actions, we then get in this loop. We then get in this stuck place of suffering, but having all of this language and all of these reasons why we're right, why our scaffolding is correct, because, well, I was traumatized when I was 2, so that's why I behave like this. And it's completely disempowering. And I think this is the main thing that traditional therapies miss, is that we are not our scaffolding. We are the creator of it and the experience of it, the experiencer of it. We are not that landscape. That landscape is our character, our personality, sure, but we're not that. So when we talk a lot in traditional therapy, there is the misunderstanding that we are our landscape and that it doesn't just naturally evolve. But the most natural thing in the world is for our landscape to evolve. So we don't need to keep going over an old story. We merely need to give ourselves permission to write a new one, to feel safe enough in our being, to show up differently. That's where the magic is. That's where the ease lies, is in that permission. So if you're finding yourself going to therapy week in, week out, without really seeing an improvement in your relationships, or your relationship to work, or your relationship to your child, or how you feel about your body, or how you feel about yourself in your life. If any of those feel stagnant and you're putting energy and resources into therapy, I'm going to ask you to think about what it is you want to get out of it. Because for me, the way to avoid anything becoming something that isn't helpful is to stay connected to what we want to be experiencing, what we want to be in the world. Who do you want to be in the world? And like, children is a really easy and lovely example. Like, I think most parents want to be loving towards their child. They want to have clear boundaries. They want to show up loving, strict but loving, or not strict but loving. Most parents want to be loving towards their child. But a lot of us really struggle day to day with actually showing up with love at the front. And that's because of all of these stories that we have about who we need to be in the world. So it's a really nice example to go, okay, so if I want to be showing up as loving, the only thing I need to understand is what's getting in the way of that. What's getting in the way of me choosing to be loving in that moment. And that's a moment to moment thing. And actually, the only thing that's ever going to be getting in the way is you believing something else is more important. You falling for the idea that being on time is more important than being loving. Being presentable is more important than being loving. So you can have life be your own therapy when you can connect to how it is you want to be in the world. When you can connect to your intention of how you want to be, and then recognizing your creative power in that. Then the old stories have less weight anyway. And the idea of going and chatting about what happened to you as a child becomes a little bit less appealing. I mean, there's always there's having an audience is often appealing. I mean, why am I doing this? But maybe that's what therapy is. Maybe it's having an audience. Maybe it's having a space where you can share things. But I would ask as well, if you want to share things and you want to share things with a person, then actually there might be space for that in your life, in friendships. You might be able to deepen and enjoy friendships by bringing your vulnerability there, rather than paying for somebody to listen to your vulnerability. Because being vulnerable is only admitting to having certain thoughts or believing certain things. And when you can start to see all of that as flexible, it becomes less of a big deal. It's not me, it's just something I thought. It's just something I believed. So to avoid therapy becoming toxic, the only way I can see is to stay connected to your own intention and what you want to be creating in your life, and take that power and that understanding into your life and see what works for you. Because there is always going to be different things that work for different people. And there is always people for whom therapy is going to be a really good thing. It's going to be the step that they need to take just to have a chat. So yeah, that's my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours if you've got any input on this. It's something it's come up a few times in the last week, which is why I wanted to do a video on it. I really appreciate you watching and look forward to hearing from you. Bye.